good blend here. And so our topic today is going to be how to raise money for your game project. I'm Jason Schuster. I'm representing BizzTalk, and I'll be hosting today and hopefully doing the least amount of talking. But I probably will throw in questions here and there because aside from being with BizzTalk, I'm also part of Bad Panda Game Studios. We're an indie studio that develops video games. So this is a relevant topic for us also. So I might be throwing some stuff at you guys too.
Did you read that on paper, or you did that just by?
What's that?
Did you read that from a paper, or did you just said it like, wow?
Just said it.
Dude, you're in the wrong profession.
I'm in the wrong profession.
Yeah, talk show host. Come on. I'm actually looking and listening at you. It's like, wow. It's like
a talk show host.
Yeah.
Yeah. I might have to give this some thought. Actually, I think Dirk has said something to me about that before.
Not for podcast.
I would get a new contract if I were you.
Well, let's, I mean, why not, right? I'm stuck at home. Might as well. I'll start something.
At least you have one viewer. It's me.
There you go. There you go. Okay, awesome. So let's get started. So right now, we've got, I'm going to start with this. The stock market is getting hammered, right? Global markets are getting hammered, and I expect that a lot of industries are going to suffer a lot in the future because of our coronavirus and the effects thereof. But interesting thing, gaming is an activity that can be done while quarantined. So especially, companies like Twitch are already experiencing big increases in viewership and numbers. So gaming is on the rise, which means that gaming projects are still very relevant despite the decrease in economic activity and the expectation that venture capital will also decline. Gaming is still potentially relevant. So the question that I have for this panel, and we don't have to go in any particular order, but I just want to get the conversation going. What is the best way for an independent studio right now to go about finding funding for their game project? As we know, games are not very cheap to make. At least most games are not cheap to make. It's pretty expensive to make a game. What's the best way for them to get started right now?
I would say, first of all,
let's go Ryan out, then Pascal, then Josh.
The smaller studios have one advantage, and they are used to work from home or different locations. I mean, I know some studios that people are all around the world, and they do this on a daily basis. And the bigger studios right now, they have collected all the people in one spot and basically had to say, go out there and stay at home. And so they're not used to the culture of working alone or in a different way of working alone. So obviously I would say right now, if you have some marketing money to spend, this might be a good time. I don't have figures accurate right now if the spending on marketing has increased. The only thing I'm reading are articles that people are saying like, oh yeah, this is up and this is up. So presumably everything is up, everyone is playing games, that's all nice. But I wouldn't care so much about that. I'm more interested in the delay of development of any game out there that should have been released. Is it still being released? Can people work on it? The dates they have. That Google or Apple expect you to deliver what's happening with that either. So I think it's more interesting to see what will happen in the next couple of months with all those games suddenly will come to the market. That's one thing. And two, I think the mid-sized studios might have an issue financially because although the revenues might be up, the portfolio is stagnating, and I think also the way how they used to work all together and now suddenly from home or wherever it's different. It's a different way of steering a company or managing a company. So funding wise, I think the investors will take all of that into account and wait a bit. I would say if May would be the date that we could actually go freely outside, then I guess it takes a summer before we would see, I think, the first deals land again on funding wise, but also M&A wise.
Okay, and so you're saying specifically from traditional investors putting money into game projects.
Yeah. Okay. I know
Excellent.
that before all of this, let me put it like this: end of last year, beginning of this year, there were a few very interesting potential deals on the table that have been put on pause. And from what I'm understanding now, in one deal, the banks were involved, and they said 4 weeks, and that was last week, and they already said, well, you know what, for the time being, we're not doing anything.
Got it. Okay. Appreciate that, Ryan. Good perspective. Pascal, what do you think?
Good segue for me, jumping in as the guy who's trying to fundraise right now and who has been into. So as a marketing advisor, I hear a lot of positives from people who have games on the market right now or digital products on the market right now, and they see the numbers soar. Josh can elaborate on that big time because he's based in Hong Kong and he has seen all the statistics. Well, he has seen a lot of movement in China, Hong Kong, and South Korea, and he was catching me up last week, and he has very interesting points to make that I'm going to leave to him. But from my perspective, I see what Reinout is saying, that if you are at early stage and you still have a long development cycle to go through before you get to market, and you need funding for your production right now, traditionally you would go to angel investors. Many of these angel investors right now have taken a hit through their stock exchange part of their portfolio. They see a world that is in chaos. The best advice during chaotic times is to wait it out and see what's going to happen. So if I don't have a product I can launch tomorrow with statistics and KPIs to back it up, it's a long-term bet, and right now the long-term is fuzzy. However, if you have a product that is about to launch or just launched, then all statistics prove that right now you have an opportunity. TikTok has its best month ever and its best week ever. I think they did 113 million downloads the last week. And yeah, they passed the billion users, but 100 million downloads in a week is a lot. TikTok is publishing games and is ramping up. They've hired a lot of people to recruit games to be published in HTML5 on their platform, as ByteDance was already doing in Douyin and in Toutiao in China. Now they're going to do it out west on TikTok. They got funding. If your game is ready or a few weeks about to be ready, this is an opportunity. For guys like me who are in early stage, this is a tricky situation right now. Although Josh has a point about institutional VCs that I will let him make. But for people with a popular product out there right now, spend in marketing. It's the right time. People are at home, they're getting bored, they consume digital entertainment like never before. A couple of other highlights. In the last couple of days, there's been a race online with all the F1 drivers flocking to it. Juan Pablo Montoya participated, Jos Verstappen participated because the Australian Grand Prix was cancelled. Within 7 between esports professionals and professionals from the racing world who were at home. I heard this morning, I didn't get into the details because it was like a tweet just before this show, just before this panel. I heard that La Liga is going to continue in FIFA 20 now. I'm not sure if that means the esports team from Real Madrid and all that, or if that means the actual player like Sergio Ramos. Because never forget that soccer players all play video games in their pastime or during their travel. Now they might as well do it online because they also have to stay relevant as influencers and stars because we are in a big zeitgeist. So it's a weird time where if you're ready and have something digital out there right now or just about to pop and you're 2 weeks away from launch, there are plenty of opportunities out there. If you need money for production and you are 6 months away from launching, times are tough, and prepare to be patient.
Very good. I appreciate that insight, Pascal. And you being in that process right now, I'm sure you've got some good feedback for us.
I got good coffee and a good site. I'm gonna be patient. I'm gonna wait it out. And by the way, I was in Hong Kong in 2003 for SARS. I think Josh was as well. We've lived through that before. Some people have hurricanes every year striking their highlands. A friend of mine really summarized it very well yesterday. He said, our grandfathers were called to go to war. We are called to stay at home sitting on the sofa. It's okay, guys, we can do this.
I like that. I like that perspective as well. Josh, how about you? What are your thoughts? What's the best way to find some money right now?
There's so many tangents there. So on the one side, we're talking about very big companies, big audience, big revenue opportunities. I think the idea of this was more to talk about fundraising for people at an earlier stage, but I can guarantee, I mean, none of this is privileged information, but talking to the larger game companies in China, taking deal flow to them, some of them are saying, oh, the economy sucks, and they just want to use that to negotiate. The truth is, the big three and a lot of the guys in the middle tier, they are having record quarters. The ones that are listed are trying to figure out how to not disclose or trying to disclose lower numbers because this is an anomaly. They can't tell their shareholders that they can keep recreating this quarter, next quarter, and the next quarter, maybe for a couple more quarters, right? But it's not going to go on forever. But online audience and viewership and all the associated revenue for esports and games and everything else is up. And that applies to games, TikTok. I was talking to a very senior guy at one of the biggest CDNs in the world the other day, and he was telling me that for all of these accounts, this is going up. Don't want to say too much, but games are recession proof and always have been, right? And we're at an even more interesting point right now where SARS was one thing, and then I was involved in a startup during the last financial crisis. And have been in video games for 25 years, and we just keep going, right? And it just keeps getting bigger. And there's 2 billion gamers or whatever in the world, and there's only 7 billion of us, right? That's a pretty big number. And when you live in Hong Kong and you travel through Southeast Asia, it's amazing sometimes going to these like remote villages in Cambodia or Laos and seeing these people that, as an American or a wealthy or mid class American or whatever, we think, oh, we're in this small village and it's poor, and these kids have smartphones and they're playing Fortnite or PUBG on their front porch, and they have very basic needs, but they're playing games, right? They have an internet connection, they have a cell phone and a data connection, right? So,
I see the same thing in Colombia. In Colombia.
Yeah, I was going to
everybody has a smartphone and everybody plays Free Fire or Fortnite.
Yeah, and they're watching TikTok, and the audience for content online just keeps growing and growing as the world becomes more and more connected. Now, the opportunity to raise money for a game has also grown, right? So I started out working for game publishers in QA, and then became a producer, and then an entrepreneur, and then an agent, and then an angel investor, and then actually working for venture capital in Hong Kong. So I've sat on both sides of the table, and I've been through crowdfunding, and then we saw how ICOs blew up as let's say the gray area of what was happening on Kickstarter and Indiegogo blew up. And some of those were game related projects. A lot of it was just a big worldwide money grab. And now everything's kind of settling down. It's like, how today can you actually raise money for your game? There's still multiple options at multiple different stages, depending on what you actually want to do, right? There are angel investors out there, early stage investors. Crowdfunding is still a great opportunity. We not too long ago did a Indiegogo campaign that raised around 280,000 US dollars. Was a big PR and marketing campaign. It net after video production costs, PR marketing, probably net a little over 100,000 US dollars, and raised $2 million in seed funding right off the back of that. So you could say that in that case, where it maybe the stars aligned and the universe is speaking, but it went a little bit viral, and the Indiegogo campaign wasn't just about coming up with enough money to create the prototype. It was a big PR and marketing campaign, because these days everybody, be it Tencent, NetEase, not just the China companies, a lot of people are looking at crowdfunding as a source of finding good content creators, even at an early stage. We had one case where a crowdfunding campaign was probably not going to organically reach its goal, and it was pulled down, shut down, and bought out by a Chinese publisher who funded it anyway, funded completely by them. So I mean, there's a whole range of stuff that we can talk about. Yeah, and a number of different avenues. But I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and where you'd kind of like to take that.
Well,
for one second, I'd like to underline that what Josh said about being recession proof. I too have been through the 2008-2009 crisis, and video games stayed recession proof for about a year, up until they brought it up unto themselves not to be, because they started delaying releases of boxed products that then didn't sell because they didn't release. But till then, we shifted to free to play and purely digital. And I'm with Josh that now the market is fully recession proof, because in video game, if you spend $10, you get more entertainment time and value than in any other entertainment sector out there. And in times of recession, when budget gets compacted, you think twice about your entertainment money, and so you spend it on where you get the most hours out of it, and that's video games.
I think I like that, and one thing that you said that is kind of interesting, because I think that a lot of indie studios think that it's either or, and I love how you mentioned the studio that used Indiegogo, and I mean they raised, like you said, 280,000 US and netted maybe 100,000 US, which we all know is usually not enough to build a game.
Oh, it's not. It's not.
It's not even close, right?
If you can see
but then leverage that into a deal, into an investment deal. That's interesting to me.
Yeah. But so, like, I have these projects that come to me. So I'm not there are crowdfunding funds who will give you the money you need to do the PR and marketing for your crowdfunding campaign. It's a 3 to 6 month thing. I don't want to work on another campaign ever again unless I have to. It's a lot of work, right? 24/7, managing the audience. And ultimately those projects get backed by like 20,000 people, right? There's that. And then, there's what's coming, which is people trying to maybe do equity or revenue equity. That happens on Fig in a few cases. But anyway, I think at the moment, crowdfunding is still possible, but crowdfunding got to the point, like every other marketplace, it's saturated with so many new Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns launching every month that you're competing for the best one. And in the early days of that type of fundraising, if you're the first one to ever launch a Kickstarter campaign, you're one of one. And if you're the 10th, you're one of 10, right? And now you're launching, now you're competing for one of whatever many launch every month in terms of whatever the total audience and revenue there is. So that's a challenge on its own. And then beyond that, but where crowdfunding has grown up is in the early days, you had a lot of young guys that probably got on there and raised money for their game and were just thinking, and then had no experience actually launching a product or developing a product to completion, and unable to meet their roadmap or their milestones because of that, run out of money. So that's one problem that crowdfunding went through. And then you had another type, which was, we have a great P&L and a budget, and we can communicate to our backers how we're going to spend our money, and then we go spend it all partying and everything anyway. And then the third type, they're like, okay, we're going to be responsible, take a bunch of crowdfunding money and actually build a product and get it out to all of our backers. But they can't see the forest through the trees, which is most people want to sell 200,000 units of their game, not 12,000 units of their game to the 12,000 people that back them, right? So it's grown up to the point now where I think everybody on crowdfunding platforms can actually see that there's a bigger world. We did that specific Indiegogo campaign, one, for the PR and marketing effort, two, because we felt that it would be profitable, and three, because we very quickly were able to take it to the next level of funding, which was traditional financing, right? And we're still working on that project, by the way, today, and that was 2017. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. See, and again, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because again, from my perspective, again, being at an indie company, there is a prevailing belief that it's one or the other. That, oh, you can't use your successful campaign to go leverage it into the money that you really need, right? Because the chances of raising $2 or $3 million on crowdfunding to actually fully fund the game, I mean, it basically zero. I mean, it happens. Pretty rare.
You could be Star Citizen.
Yeah, you could be. Yeah, let's say there are exceptions, right? There's exceptions, but for the most part, I think it's no. So that's good. I think that's very valuable information. So hopefully, hopefully everybody's listening. There's ways to do this. Yeah. I guess I had kind of a follow-up question. Another form of funding that was recently brought to our attention by another publisher was basically going directly to the platforms for development funding, right? Like for instance, Apple, Apple Arcade for mobile. I guess they have in the past have provided development funding for games that sign exclusivity deals, or Microsoft doing the same thing for saying, hey, if you only publish on Xbox and not on PlayStation, we'll help fund your game. Do you guys think that those kinds of deals are going to continue for game developers?
The only times I've heard that personally was almost as rare as getting 2 or 3 million from Kickstarter. You were a star established developer with a name and a sequel to a big title or very much expected title. I don't think if I knock on the door of Microsoft, Sony, or Apple today, I'm going to get money for my startup that is producing its first game as a company. Obviously, we have experience as a team, but the star level you need to be, such deals happen, but they are very rare and far between, and it's usually for the big shots or something that has been proven by Kickstarter or proven elsewhere. They are chasing the next hits. Think about it as a store. They want to have the exclusive on the next big thing. But right, to prove that you're the next big thing is a tricky scenario.
I agree with that. Josh, Reinhard, what do you guys think?
What I would just
say, Reinhard, then Josh.
I think Kapi or Kepi did, or at least I was told that they actually had a game that is working with Apple subscription. But it's a long shot, I would say. Then again, some of those, all the companies, and even now TikTok itself, all the companies that have normally distribution, good distribution, I always feel that they get sort of greedy and always want to develop games themselves. Obviously, they all hope for that $1 gazillion billion hit or something. I don't know why they make the decision, because I think if you have proper distribution, stay with it and do the cherry pick with all those developers knocking on your door. But I could see that if you have developed a couple of good games that did work with your platform, that you could actually invest. The question is, would you invest in a property, a game itself, or in a company? And I'm more like towards a company. Why? Because if the game fails and and it sucks all the way to the bank, then the next game might be a hit, and then you lose out on it. So it could be that Facebook, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they're already doing it. I mean, they have involvements in certain game companies. So by having a stake at first, and you can call it whatever. I mean, they won't do seed investment, but they could do or potentially be involved in in Series A, even pre-Series A, and take the company at a later stage to a level where they go to majority, let's say 51%, and then anything can go. So the rationale is there. If it's a smart thing for them to do, I don't know, because if you invest in one company, it goes well, then the urge to go to a second and a third will be there. And then before you know, you're actually more an investment firm than anything else.
I like that. I like that. Good perspective. Josh, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't have a lot of experience dealing with the major companies on very many. I mean, I've worked with a lot of independent game studios in the past as an advisor or consultant or whatever, but I don't know many that have actually gotten direct support from Apple or Google. Back in the day, I know quite a few that were supported by Sony or Xbox, Microsoft on the Xbox side, kind of during the big console wars. There's some interesting stories going back all the way back to the mid 90s, if you want to. But you know, fast forward 20, 25 years, and yeah, I mean, if you look at Pokemon Go, it was spun out of Google basically, right? Niantic was a Google project. They built Ingress. Now it's still a very big revenue generator. I don't think that the Harry Potter game they built has been doing that well. I don't know. I don't follow the numbers every day, but you know, Google of course has an interest in that and spun that out. That's cool. I don't think they've done that 100 times. Amazon has Lumberyard. They funded a number of studios. Lumberyard's their game engine that ties into AWS. There was a lot of money at one point flowing into the game industry, but I doubt that was, I think that those were bigger studio size projects than independent studio size projects. Which excludes a lot of people from that. You know, but yeah, but then of course, you know, there's still a lot of people out there. I mean, I know it's hard. Like there are people who see the game industry find it interesting, either because they've played esports or World of Warcraft for a number of years and made relationships online or whatever. There are angel investors out there. I'm surprised at how many I actually know that have blindly place money into a video game because it was a hobby and a passion, and then all the way to, you know, funds. Just here in Hong Kong alone, there's Maker Fund and Kowloon Knights, and both of them have done their sister funds. One's very game focused, but they've done quite well, I've heard, with their portfolio of investments in that, and they did have a certain amount of money set aside for indie-sized studios making games and only distributing on Steam, not on console or mobile for that matter, right? So there are a lot of options out there. I think it's a wide open space and sometimes requires help navigating through it, right?
Actually, Josh broadened my mind now about platforms. And first of all, Amazon, you're right that when it's about Lumberyard and using their engine, there may be still some deals to be made there. In that same state of mind, Epic is trying to build on the fame of Fortnite to become a platform, Epic Game Store, but they have the Epic mega deals out there. You have to commit to on the Unreal Engine. If you're committed to build on the Unreal Engine, you're going to get a super good deal from them. If you want to build on Unity, you're not going to get any. But that's one that is out there right now, successful and flush with cash. And another one you just mentioned, Josh, is TikTok. They're signing games left and right, sometimes investing in companies, sometimes investing just in the game. They as well, you have to be prepared to give them a deal where it's about splitting the revenue and using their platform. And you have to commit to do HTML5 because their platform is HTML5. But if you're wanting to play ball with one of these two rising giants, which is my experience in marketing, by the way, go with either the rising giant, or if you have to, take the money from the loser, which right now would be Google Stadia. Google Stadia is throwing millions at people to make games on their platform because nobody wants to. So that's another way of looking at it. I'd rather go with the winner and the rising platform, so that would be TikTok or Epic.
Well, one thing I want to say on that one, and that is, quite a while ago, people were saying Facebook and VR, and they're throwing money at VR developers, and it's shit. And but if I recall today, they have a lively game development community around them working on VR. So I don't know. I mean, on the other hand, Google has tried a lot with gaming over the past. Not always that successful. If we listen now, I'm hearing more negative comments about Stadia than positive. Same with Amazon. The good news is I would say that these bigger companies have finally addressed the game industry as interesting. And the fact of the matter is, what you're saying, Hong Kong and China, it's a different culture. Makers Fund, I think, is quite active around the globe, but there are so many. You could almost compare China. You can't compare China with anyone, but you can compare China and for example, Finland. There's a lot of Chinese that really make good money and invest in their backyard, and it's the same in Finland. And I think for any country out there, the hope would be that they have one or two big companies make an exit or do gazillion funding so that they can invest in the local community around it. Right now, what you see is that, yeah, in the likes of TikTok and the Googles and the Facebooks, they're actually considering investments in gaming. And that has been a long time not be on their agenda. So I think all in all, that is good. But having said that, yes, Google has local offices. Amazon does so too. The seed investment or the pre-Series A, I don't think they are the ones that actually will put the money down for those types of companies and their products, their games. So that's still bound to companies like Play Ventures, London Venture Partners, Lifeline when it comes to more the Nordic. That's a different group of investors.
I appreciate
That's
that.
a very good point. That's a very good point. It's always about timing and where you are. I actually learned from fundraising firsthand that this is one of the first questions you ask to an investor. In which stage of companies do you invest? If they tell you you come to me for $4 million when you are in growth stage, you can hang up the phone, your early stage. You tell your story real quick in 5 minutes out of courtesy, but you're not going to sell an early stage company to somebody who is investing in growth mode companies. It's a fit as well, like in any other business or commercial relationship. You have to be a match one for the other.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I have 3 questions. One from the audience that I think is it's really good. I'd like to bring it here to the panel, but the other 2 are essentially it's 2 parts. One, if you have a project, you're a game studio, you have what you think is a really exciting project, you think it's fundable, should you be approaching investors on a project basis or on a company basis? In this current environment going forward, is a indie studio more likely to raise seed funding for the studio or development funding for a project? That's the first part of the question. And the second part is, let's say that you're a US company, there's still a lot of US studios. Should you stay in the US looking for that money? Or should you be reaching out to places like China?
First of all, I believe investing in companies, but it depends on the stage. So the question, no, the answer on the question should be from my perspective, and that can always differ with other kinds of people, but just my perspective. You invest in a project when your friends and family, they can actually get you going. And that brings me to an interview I did this afternoon with Oscar Clark. And I said, well, we weren't actually able to do next to our jobs, starting a game, working with some people. Our networks were not big enough. There was no LinkedIn. There was nothing. We had a modem. And today, people are connected via the internet with everything, any social network, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. So you can find fellow friends that actually can develop with you. So first of all, that is a low-cost start that you can actually do. With that, you have in your surrounding friends, family, whatever, and they actually can get you going so that you go to a point of an MVP, minimum viable product, or a prototype or whatsoever. And that is the moment where I think you then should go out. And that's actually, so friends and families is pre-seed. Then I would actually look for, I call it seed or pre-A, whatever, 1 million to 1.5 million or 2. And that means that you actually finish the game, you go out there, and you get momentum. And having said that, let's expect that you don't get any momentum, then at least you should have some extra money in the bank that you can actually work on a second IP, which I hope you already have done while going live with the first, but at least have something on the shelf that you can quickly throw out there, which is showing the current investor that at least you're learning actually something, and maybe he can bridge you to make the second go-to point, where then if that's sort of making money, sort of successful, you can then actually go for a Series A. Anything up to that point, if you can find your funding within your own country, and I know countries can be rather big, but still anything in your backyard is best because it goes quicker. It is in your own legal environment. And I mean, you know your legal in your own country better. You have advisors that can help you with legal. Instead of going to a company that comes from the other side of the world with different DNA, with different culture and decision making and ways of investing, meaning they tie your balls to the table and tell you what to do.
I like that. Thank you, Reinout. Appreciate that. Josh, Pascal, what are your thoughts on those same questions? And then
I agree with Reinout that it's
for magnets over there.
That it's all about the stages, and really if you have a product that is ready and has awesome KPIs and is proven and you get momentum, or you're about to get that momentum, then you can deal around that product because you can show it, you can show your data, and you can deal both with publishers and investors around the momentum that you already have. If it's about production, then it's about the team. And much more so than the idea. The idea in and of itself is worth maybe $1, even if it's the greatest idea in the world. The proof that you can execute is in the quality of your team, and then in the quality of your bootstrap. And I take this as my own responsibility that every month, while pitching to investors, it's slow. I know the money is going to come back tomorrow. I use my own savings, the goodwill of my co-founders who get shares for the time they put in, and we keep it going to have some progress month on month to show that we are a real team and a real company, and that's on us. And the market will decide when we have reached MVP status, when our progress was enough that we are now worth being invested in. You have to prove yourself from our side of the aisle, and that is totally normal, I think. And But if you have your product ready, you already bootstrapped, you already got some money from friends and relatives, you got a couple of angels in, you've been polishing it for 9 months, and your soft launch is showing amazing KPIs, you are in a good position. Leverage that position now to talk to anyone and get the best deal out of it. Obviously, you're in another phase than I am then. But till then, it's about team. It's about team, because Reynard made a super important point that I, as a marketing guy, completely understand. 1,000 games come out every week. That is 5 years of PlayStation production. The 5 years of PlayStation games come out every single week. So even if your team is strong, your game is fantastic, maybe it's not going to be a hit. So the quality and the toughness of your team really is, if it's not a hit, can you make the money back from it and reinvest that money into a second game? Can you deal with setbacks? Do you have the skin to survive in this tough world out there that is ultra competitive? That's what an investor wants to see. If you have the best idea in the world, but you suck as a leader, it's a red flag as an investor, because you probably are going to blow it. Despite being dealt a very good hand full of aces, you're not going to play it right. So why give you a big stack of chips? It's poker. You're playing the players and psychologically, the psychology of the table as much as the cards. Look at Snapchat, for example. It didn't become the TikTok that it could have been because of poor leadership. So it shows you can screw the pooch even if you had a very great product.
I like that. That's good. That's good, Pascal. It's about the team. Josh, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it can depend on so many factors, but let's just say that we're talking about young people that want to make and form an independent studio, make an independent game. How do they get discovered? How do they get funded? Because that's what everybody in most, like, we're talking most of the world there, right? Like Latin America, Southeast Asia. There are very different markets where, there's not the, Hong Kong is very different than China. China is now one of the biggest gaming markets in the world. When we were first doing mobile games there was, no audience, or PC games for that matter, right? There's never really been a console market there. And I've kind of watched it grow up since I've been in Hong Kong since 2001. But on the indie game side, I think I would say, I've dealt with a lot of creative people in my life and a lot of great ideas. I think Pascal was saying to some degree, ideas are just a dime a dozen. It really comes down to execution. If you're young and passionate, that also makes a difference, right? Because fundraising is all about the timing and the storytelling, right? And you can't tell a really great story without having passion, right? It can't just be about raising money, right? There's a lot of great people with a lot of great ideas. It's about having the passion, sometimes luck, maybe. I know people who have been lucky, met the right person at the right time. But I would say don't be afraid of seeking help, looking for great advisors. If you get to the point where, there are experienced people out there like agents, there's a cost to raising money. People don't realize that, be it, offering equity, or there's got to be a proper alignment and incentive for the people around you to kind of help you. And I know, I hate asking people for money, but I'm also have a business to run, right? And I know Rhino probably feels the same way. It's, call it myself an agent or a consultant or whatever. We have these networks and we have this experience, and we can't just offer it to everybody for free. But I would say, like, seek out the best help that you can get in your own market first, be it friends and family, potential angel investors. Ask for warm introductions. Learn how to do that, and talk to people about your idea, and don't hold it too close to your chest, because it could be the best idea in the world, but if you don't get out there and talk to people about it, you're never going to get anywhere, honestly. Yeah. And the more people you have on your side, be it cheerleading squad, team owners, whatever, you know, there's a much better potential for winning that, getting in the game, you know.
Absolutely.
There is an interesting part, exactly what Josh is saying. I mean, I don't mind if people actually say, hey, can I send my pitch deck? It's not like that I'm directly saying, okay, you need to sign a contract and you need to pay me top dollars. It's interesting, first of all, for me to see what is out there. Second, if I can facilitate, once I see it's good or good enough, it's never too good, then I can help you with some introductions, and you have to take it from there unless you really think you need some help with it. But it's exactly that thing, that funding you can't do alone. Obviously, you need perspective people that will send you an email and say, like, you know what, I looked at slide 8, it doesn't make sense. Sometimes you're really into your own story, in your own world, in your own studio, and you need to see it from the other side. And so yeah, if you can get help from someone that has a network that is sort of close to you, at arm's length, whatever, use it. And yeah, as I said in the beginning, today, young people, young entrepreneurs, because that's what you are, even if you're a techie or you're business savvy, you're a young entrepreneur, but you have more chances because everything is at arm's length through the LinkedIns, the Facebooks. There are Apple offices around the world where you can pitch your game. Same with Google, same with so much else. So, in fact, it's a good moment in time to be in gaming.
Absolutely. I agree. I think it is a good time to be in gaming.
And as we are locked down, I have to emphasize Reynard's part about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a wonderful tool. Anybody I want to talk to, I can see who is my secondary connection. That secondary connection, if I've worked with him and proved him my quality, he can vouch for me to that person who doesn't know me at all. If I don't have a secondary connection, you would be amazed how a cheeky, kind of funny 300-word introduction showing that you've read the entire profile of the person and that you caught something that nobody catches on. I've had lots of very powerful people actually reply my LinkedIn connection. After that, it's on me to keep it interesting for them, to keep the dialogue going, and sometimes it dies out. They are very busy people. But yeah, you would be surprised how, if you don't limit yourself, people are very accessible in this world. You just have to have a little bit of empathy, think about their point of view. Don't come out using your 300 words, making it all about you and how you're the best in the world. Show respect and show that you've studied actually the profile of the person and that you're not just copy pasting the same bland pitch to everyone without even caring if it's for them or not. But yeah, LinkedIn is a wonderful tool to meet people without leaving your room.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's only one more question, and I basically looking for like the 20 to 30-second short answer on this. But it was from Magnus from Triolith Games. He said, "What would you say is a normal pre-seed amount or seed amount for a game company with an early prototype?" And just to kind of give the audience an idea of what to expect.
Yeah.
I will leave that to Reynard because he gave me very good advice for my own company about that.
Yeah, if it happened to be that simple, since you want to have an answer, 150 to 500K.
Perfect. I do think it depends on the project, but that's a good number.
Yeah,
Josh,
I mean, I'm saying 500 just because I think it's nice if it's an early prototype, then you need to explain me what the runway is to make it not a prototype, but something ready, or at least testing to the market. So I would say 150 to get it ready. That might be, and then someone might be really happy and say, okay, I'm going to give you a shitload of money, but I don't think that's happening a lot. So then I would have some extra. So also as an investment or an investor, I would look at it that you had at least a shot to market, and then once you show some traction, immediately keep on raising, because that's another thing. You can get a pre-seed, you can get a seed, or whatever you get, but it's always raising, always hiring. Those are the two fundamentals.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you have, Matikainen, a friend of mine at Slush once made. He had just announced his raise for Armada Interactive in the news 2 days before. And I meet him and I tell him, and he tells me, oh, I'm sorry I'm late. I was in a meeting with investors. And I told him, but didn't you just announce your raise? And he just answered, always be raising. And it's a good point, you know, if you don't wait for the money to run out to get the next chunk of money. I've seen some developers do that mistake. They have their first 500K, 400K, and they look at their runway and it's 6 months. And 6 months is just such a long time, right? Well, it's not. It goes like that. And if you start raising again after month 5 because you realize you need 2 more months of runway because iterative process and all that, well, investors don't always turn around that quickly. They have liquidity issues and opportunities of their own. So even with follow-ons with their own investors, you have to keep things as alive, like with anything else. You would do it in your marketing. In your marketing, you will have content updates every 3 weeks to keep your audience satisfied. Well, with your investors' relations, do the same. Keep them updated about your progress, your momentum, what you did this month, or how much money you spend and why and how. And so that they can see, the ones who are in or the ones who are as maybes, they can see what you're doing with it. And then you're not just always asking and asking and asking. You're also showing something for what you ask.
I like that. Thanks, Pascal. Always be raising. Josh, final thoughts on that?
I would change that slightly. We call it ABC, always be closing.
That's the original from the Alec Baldwin movie that we have all seen. But the variant always be raising works too, my man.
Yes.
I was always closing when in marketing. Now that I'm in early stage, it's always be raising.
But no, seriously, I mean, this again, it comes to help, down to having help, great advisors, consultants, whatever. I had the pleasure of working with a big agency for 2.5 years, working with AAA studios only. And they all had an agent or agency representing them, because, you know, back then, I mean, the times of having 300-man studios are going away. There's a lot of that, you know, 80-90% outsourcing across art, audio, and all this other stuff, you know. But they back then, console games were costing, you know, I've been involved in games that cost tens of millions of dollars, right? And 2 or 3 year development cycles. And the developers put their head down, the studio owners, you know, and develop for 2.5 years. And then they're like, okay, now what's next, right? And the industry's changed, right? You need people to, like, unless you have your own people that are on top of what's kind of going on, you know, and you're able to double or triple track through all that kind of stuff, then you needed outside advisors to help you through it, right? Because a lot, like, you know, I was there when the China market kind of opened to PC games and then mobile games, and now it's one of the largest games in the market. And we didn't know what we were doing back in the beginning when we were first selling our first 10,000 units of a PC game in China. And now, you know, we there was a mobile game I was involved with that did 180 million downloads in China alone, 50% of the worldwide total. Like, it's, you know, those market shifts happen, and they happen relatively quickly for a lot of people. You know, I'd say
I remember which one.
5 to 8 years, right? It wasn't yours. It wasn't Best Fiends.
No, I know, but I know the one it was. It was from Down Under. Let's just put it there.
Yeah, it was actually, yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah. But I do think so. There are a lot of great things out there. There are, you know, some really great indie focused studios, indie focused people that kind of love that. Steam's been a great thing for supporting indie game distribution, even in China. There are indie game publishers, there are crowdfunding funds that focus on the game segment alone. You just have to go out and research them or find them or get introduced to them. You know, there's a number of opportunities. And I'd say if, you know, whether I'm a 3 to 5 man studio or, you know, a bunch of friends trying to start out, I would be out talking to everybody I can in the network that knows anything about how to get how do they got where they are, and asking for help. And along the way, if it's the right time, you have the right story, you will find people who will follow, you know, feel your passion and potentially provide you with funding. And then hope that you're still around in 10 years, making great content and getting a big audience, you know.
So good advisors and always be closing. That's the final parting advice from our panel today. We're actually out of time, so I gotta close everything up here.
Okay.
But hey, thank you all three of you for being here and on short notice, nonetheless. So thank you, Ryan out from RTB, Pascal from Big Karma, Josh from Net Zero, or what was it? 10. Sorry, Net Zero. That's not. We don't have anyone from Net Zero. From 10 Digital. Really great advice from all of you today. This was really a great panel, and feel like everybody watching was able to really get a good idea of what to expect here in the future. I liked how a lot of the advice was not cliche advice. A lot of it was really insightful, and you know, clearly you guys have done this before, so that's really, really helpful. Love to have you guys back again. And for everybody watching, enjoy the rest of Gaming San Francisco as far as matchmaking, and hopefully there's some really good meetings in lieu of GDC. And otherwise, stay safe. Stay safe out there, guys. This is, you know, stay home, play video games, and do Zoom calls. That's all we want to do, right?
Yeah.
Awesome, this, Jason.
Oh, absolutely. I love doing this. This is like not even work for me. I just I love meeting people like you guys. And Ryan, out, this is like what I think our second or third one that you and I have done. So always a pleasure. Josh, Pascal, would love to have you guys back again.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Thank you for having us. It was
Absolutely.
a great time.
All right.
Today.
Have a good day.
Cheers. Stay safe. Bye bye.